Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to go over the incidence rate calculations and cumulative incidence calculations in STATA. So we have two objectives for today. First is to calculate the cumulative incidence of death among smokers and non-smokers in STATA. And then our second objective will be to calculate the incidence rate of death among smokers and non-smokers in STATA. So our first question is, why can we calculate the cumulative incidence of death? In order to be able to calculate cumulative incidence, certain conditions have to be met. So first, all members of our cohort were followed for death over a 24-year period. This means that we have no loss to follow-up or competing risks. You have to see whether or not someone died. We know whether or not everyone in the cohort died or not. Therefore, we can calculate the cumulative incidence of death. So let's go to STATA now and see how this would be done. Okay, so now that we're in STATA, first you want to go to the Statistics menu and just click on that. And then we're going to go about 2/3 of the way down to this Epidemiology and Related option. Then we're going to go over to Tables for Epidemiologists, and then we're going to go over to Cohort Study, Risk Ratio, etc. And a risk is similar to a cumulative incidence. So just click on that. And we have this window pop up that has a few options. So first is our case variable. In this case, we're interested in the cumulative incidence of death. So we're going to hit the down arrow and then click on death. That's our case. For the exposed variable, we're interested in the cumulative incidence of death among smokers and non-smokers. So we're just going to scroll down until we get to the variable called cur-smoke1. This indicates whether someone was a smoker or a non-smoker at baseline. Once you do that, just hit OK at the bottom. And we can see that this table pops up. There's quite a few things in this table, but we're actually just interested in this top panel here that I have highlighted. This is where we're going to see the information on the cumulative incidence rate. So first, our two columns, we have exposed people and unexposed people. These represent the smokers at baseline and the non-smokers at baseline. Then in our rows, we have cases. These are the number of deaths, and non-cases. These are the number of people who were alive. So we can see that among our smokers, we had 788 deaths. Among our non-smokers, we had 762 deaths. Now to find the cumulative incidence, we just go right below this table to this row here that's labeled risk. The first number shows us the risk in the exposed group, and the risk in the exposed group is 0.361. This means that 36.1% of smokers died during follow-up. In comparison, for non-smokers, the cumulative incidence of death was 0.338. This means that 33.8% of non-smokers died. So we can see that the cumulative incidence of death is higher in smokers than in non-smokers. So now that we've calculated the cumulative incidence, what about the incidence rate? Can we calculate the incidence rate of death? And yes, we can calculate this because we have person time for all members of our cohort. So let's go back to STATA and do an incidence rate calculation. So we're back in STATA now. We're going to go to similar tabs that we did before, go to Statistics, then down to Epidemiology and Related, over to Tables for Epidemiologists, and then go to the Incidence Rate Ratio, and just click on that, and a window should pop up. Again, it asks us for our case variable, which will be death again, and our exposed variable, which again will be current smoking at baseline. So just scroll down until you get to cur-smoke1. Now the difference here is that it's also asking for the person time variable. So we're interested in the amount of time that you were followed from baseline until death or the end of follow-up. And that variable is represented by something called time DTH, time to death or end of follow-up. So once you select that, just hit OK at the bottom. Again, we get these results coming up, and we're just interested in the top part of the table, the part that I have highlighted right now. The columns are exactly the same as they were before. We have current smokers at baseline in the first column, and we have current non-smokers at baseline in the second column. Our first row is our death indicator. This is how many deaths occurred among smokers and non-smokers. So we can see that as we expected, there were 788 deaths among smokers and 762 deaths among non-smokers. Now the second row is a little bit different. This is time in years. So this is our person time variable. So we can see that there were roughly 44,000 person years among smokers and 46,000 person years among non-smokers. Then to get the incidence rate, we're going to go to this last row of this top table. And we can see that the incidence rate in people who reported current smoking at baseline of death was 0.0177 per person year. You could also multiply this by 1,000 to get that the incidence rate of death was 17.7 deaths per person year. If we go over to the non-smokers, we can see that the incidence rate of death was 0.0163. Again, we can multiply this by 1,000 and see that the incidence rate of death was 16.3 deaths per 1,000 person years. So that's basically an overview of how you would calculate the cumulative incidence of death and the incidence rate of death. See you guys soon.